Good morning, Grand Rising, and welcome to Wake Up. Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
The sun is rising, the sky is blue. Good morning, Grand Risings, let's see what's new. It's that time of day for Sonia and crew. Good morning, Grand Risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton. Cup
Good
of
morning,
coffee in
Grand
hand,
Rising.
starting fresh with the bean.
Yeah, there you go. You can hear it in the background. Thank you so much to our beautiful Markson, as ever, for doing that for us. How are you all? Welcome to Wake Up, the show that knows we are living in an age of tremendous transparency where no evil deed can remain hidden for long. And I am so here for it. What a wonderful time to be alive. Good morning, Grand Rising. I don't know where you are, but it is beautiful sunshine here. Beautiful. And I love it. I love it. I love it. What's on Wake Up today? We will be joined by former teacher Kerry. She'll be joining us to talk about working with vulnerable children and young people and the problems facing a generation who are stuck, unmotivated and unsupported by the government. And it's all change on the gender front. Yesterday, phenomenal day in sport to do with women. Absolutely phenomenal. And we will be joined by Jean HATCHET, I was just going to say Hackett, Jean HATCHET, who's been with us before, writer and activist, and she'll be talking about the sea change in world sports. This is huge. It's just changing so quickly. And on a really sad note, we're going to be joined from Camp Beagle. Camp Beagle is an industrial scale laboratory where they breed beagles for experimentation in the Cambridgeshire countryside. And we're going to be joined live at 10 o'clock by John from Camp Beagle. And local elections, votes are coming in, and Kneecap support. Musicians have finally found their spines again. And I will review Groomed, a national scandal. Plus, Sean Diddy Combs, trial preparation. Trial starts next week. And final thought, why I agree with the philosophy of let them. And great response to David Whitehead being with us on Wednesday and what he had to say about Canada, Carney and World Cults rather. And Trevish Nuss wrote, love Sonia, love David, my fellow countryman, double plus good. However, I cannot endorse the idea of us, Canada, becoming the 51st state of America. I get you. And thank you, Marlena, pointing out I had the wrong thumbnail up this morning. I had Wake Up Later. See, you people do prompt me into action. It's absolutely wonderful. And Del said, I'm so sick of life. Why is it all turned into such garbage? Come on, let's lift up those spirits. And Worthy on X said, morning, Sonia. Temperatures plummet for the holiday weekend. Grey skies today. Worthy, where are you, mate? Like, it is already gorgeous here. It was so lovely yesterday. I'm so happy. I will be here on Bank Holiday Monday, so don't you worry about that. And Dennis, your bird feeder should be with you today or tomorrow. I did multiple layers to the wrapping. I'm not kidding. It literally took me about half hour to wrap that thing. It's wrapped with love, Dennis. It's wrapped with love. How are you all? Jan, grey skies in North Cornwall. Morris is in Manchester. Roasting here this morning, says Kath. Kath, you're like up north, aren't you? You're kind of like Tyneside, right? And Sally says North Hart postal votes sent the wrong information. I was told that we could not vote, and if we had already sent our vote, it would be excluded. What the heck? Stephen's got a sunny day there, which is wonderful. And of course, local elections in the UK, which is what our Sal is referring to. We will be joined on Monday by Nigel Jacklin, who will be covering the results and explaining what it all means to us. Reform won the by-election in Runcorn on only 6 points. This is as narrow a margin as you can humanly get, right? And viewer Norwab, who often writes in, Norwab, have I pronounced your name right? If I've failed, ignore me, and wrote in about Reform's victory at Runcorn and Helsby by just 6 votes, set a new record for the smallest ever majority. And Norwab says it's a victory for common sense and a slap in the face for the extremist Labour Tories who want to destroy Britain with the COVID scam and mass immigration. He's not impressed. And there was a total of 1,641 council seats, which were up for grabs across 23 town halls in the local elections. 4 regional mayors and 2 local mayors will also be elected. So how are you all? How are you all? I hope you're well. And I did see that Graham Moore, and I've had some requests to bring Graham on. Graham has been on Wake Up a number of times, friend of the show. And Graham Moore said, this is the Runcorn and Helsby leaflet the post office did not deliver to 45,400 addresses. He's suggesting election interference here. He said they denied you your right to be informed. We paid for these. We paid the deposit to stand. Local people assented. The Royal Mail censored us and you. That's fairly outrageous. If that's accurate, and I've no reason to believe that he's making that up, that's outrageous. Censorship of a smaller party. What on earth is going on? And love from Sweden, says Penny. How are you, Penny? And Paul, I saw your comment about the Belgrano. You said Paul Cardin wrote in the comments, the Belgrano was politically and literally sunk 43 years ago today and helped deeply unpopular Margaret Thatcher to win the 1983 election, rather. And Paul had some involvement in that. I've actually interviewed you about this before, haven't I, Paul? Are you in the comments, Paul? How are you all? I'd say the same if only 50 votes. Yes, me, I agree. Absolutely. And while the humanitarian crisis continues in Gaza, please don't expect me to be shutting up about it anytime soon. Now, I am aware that some people would prefer me to cover A and not B. But the thing is, I'm that gal who will cover A, B, C, and D, whether you like it or not. That's the kind of person I am. And I don't do it to get up your nose. I do it because I consider it my responsibility as an investigative journalist to cover the fact that there is a humanitarian crisis, a huge humanitarian crisis happening right in view. We can all see it. And very little is actually being done about it. So I absolutely love it when a band like Kneecap stand up to be counted. And I love it even more when I see the establishment go after them. And then I love it even more on top of that when I finally see musicians standing up to be counted, and not before bloody time, frankly. I was so sick of the cowardice of musicians around C19, but there are more than 40 music acts, 40 plus now, including Paul Weller, have signed an open letter in support of Kneecap. And what is interesting is Massive Attack, who I know, who I've been to Daddy G's home, who I've interviewed, who I've been to their raves and various other things. Massive Attack put out their own message on Instagram. And what they actually said, let me just find this comment from them. They said, language matters, of course. The hideous murders of elected politicians Joe Cox and David Amos means there's no scope for flippancy or recklessness. And what Massive Attack are referring to there is the whole big hoo-ha that has blown up involving a video of Kneecap from 2023 in which they said some reprehensible things about Tory MPs that I do not support and they do not support. And they've even apologized to both Joe Cox's family and David Amos's family. But Massive Attack went on to say, politicians are strategically concocting moral outrage over the stage utterings of a young punk band while ignoring a genocide in Gaza. The statement added, Kneecap are not the story. Gaza is the story. Genocide is the story. And the silence, acquiescence and support of those crimes against humanity by the elected British government is the real story. That is the real story. Not whether you want me to cover it or not whether Kneecap said something 2 years ago. The real story that they want to keep obscuring is the fact that there is a genocide taking place. And the letter signed by these musicians said this past week has seen a clear, concerted attempt to censor and ultimately deplatform the band Kneecap. In Westminster and the British media, senior political figures have been openly engaged in a campaign to remove Kneecap from the public eye, with veiled threats being made over the scheduled performance of gigs, outdoor events, and music festivals, including Glastonbury. Chillingly, it is also clear to us that influential figures and personalities within the wider music industry are attempting to influence this campaign of intimidation. And as one commenter on X that I saw, Secret Drug Addict, said, they're trying to do to Kneecap what they did to Sinead O'Connor. Oh, yes, indeed. Many of us remember when Sinead O'Connor was on, I think it was Saturday Night Live, and she tore up a picture of the Pope. I don't think it was Pope Francis, Pope before. And if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but she took a picture of the Pope, and everything went mad. And they tried to cancel her and do all manner of things. And I don't think it's a coincidence that both these acts are Irish and do understand about oppression. They do. And so anyway, what else to say about that? Not a great deal, other than Metropolitan Police are reviewing this video clip along with footage from another concert in November 2024. Absolute cowards. The Eden Project has cancelled Kneecap. Pathetic. 3 more Kneecap concerts have been cancelled in Germany. There's pressure on Glastonbury from ministers. All manner of people have come out. Statements from the families of Joe Cox and David Amos. And it just kind of goes on and on. But the fact is, as Jackie, who tweeted me on X shortly before we came on, pointed out, I mean, there's just so much awful stuff. And this is a tweet from Loki. It appears Israel just drone attacked the Gaza Freedom Flotilla in the middle of international waters with 30 people on board. Can we please bear in mind that this is literally an international crisis with UNRWA, UNRWA, nearly 3,000 of their trucks with life-saving supplies are waiting outside Gaza, but the siege blocking their entry continues. Food is being denied. Water is being denied. Children are literally... Innocent people are being murdered, but people don't want me to be talking about it. You must be joking. You must be literally joking. And on top of that, we're getting an influx of Gazan children into the UK. Yesterday, it was announced, and people were like, I don't want them here. Yeah, well, stop supporting genocide then. It's really simple. We need to hold the British government and politicians to account. If we want to stop mass immigration, we need to go right back to the drawing board and see who is involved in creating these situations that make people have to leave their homelands. And I think you'll find that the British government may be involved somewhere there. Seriously ill children from Gaza war zones are coming into the UK. And I read people on X, they were like, we don't want it. It's absolutely disgusting. These are children. These are children. I can't get my head around it. And I won't either. Because I just know it's not okay. It's not acceptable. And thank you, Kneecap, for standing up to be counted. There you go. That's what I have to say about that. And also the sheer hypocrisy of it, of course, because Frank Hester, Tory donor, I've got some details here, gave 10 million to the Tories. And bear in mind that not only was he racist about Diane Abbott, a Labour MP, but he talked about how she should be shot. What happened there? Where was the uproar? Where was the uproar from the Tories there? And it's because it's nothing to do with what has actually been said, but the fact that that Kneecap are standing up against what's going on in Gaza and Israel. That's the reality. And same with the awful busybodies at the Board of Deputies of British Jews, who constantly seek to censor British life. And the way that they went after Corbyn, and in fact, a former president, Lionel Koplovich, who is now dead, but he actually was live streamed, and I've got the video, but he was live streamed talking about how he wanted to sacrifice Corbyn. And he was talking physically to such a degree that the woman who was involved in hosting it had to remind him, we're live streaming. She didn't say what you said is wrong. She just had to remind him that we're live streaming. So I don't like the hypocrisy. I don't like it at all. And when I see people like Melanie Phillips, who is a hate preacher, she's a hate preacher, and she has now said that that people should be saying things like there is no such thing as the Palestinians. I was late coming to this table. It took me a long time to realize what was going on because I was really scared about being called anti-Semitic. But you cannot be silent in the face of such injustice. And I certainly can't. That's not where I'm coming from. And I'm sure many of you know that about me. And this, US and Ukraine, they've now signed their mineral deal. Donald Trump has finally agreed. to go along with their wording. And in fact, it was interesting wording. This is them signing the agreement. The wording was extremely interesting because Donald Trump's new wording, as opposed to saying, you know, Russia didn't invade, the new wording on the settlement is that Russia's war on Ukraine was a full-scale invasion. It's amazing how people will change their mind and their wording when money is in the frame, isn't it? And Donald Trump is no different. Well, in fact, I'd put him at the forefront. He's a deal man, although with about 7 bankrupt businesses behind him, but he's still a deal man. Remember that, people. Remember that, people. And yes, Peter, I agree. And you're absolutely right, Queen Bee. Not all Jews support genocide. Absolutely. And the thing is, I really want to be clear here, right? And that is, my anger is at Zionism, not at Jewish people, right? Let us be absolutely clear. I will not tolerate anti-Semitism around here, like I won't tolerate anything else, right? Let's just be clear about that, people. Yes, Marliner, he went back on his word, but that's the way it goes, yo. Right, I am going to bring in our first guest. Let's get talking, people. Let's get talking. How are you all? How are you all? And that's exactly right, Soul Sound. I'm just going to repeat that. And that is, not all Jews are Zionists and not all Zionists are Jews. Let's be clear. A lot of Zionists are Christians and Catholics and, well, even actual Muslims. I've actually met Zionist Muslims who believe in the whole idea of settling and Zionism. Right. Let's bring in our first guest. I think I've said enough already. Hello, Kerry. How are you?
Hi, Sonia. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Were a teacher for 23 years. You were working with children, with young people, and what you saw was how they were forgotten in the system. And you approached me and you wanted to talk about it. And you're now working outside of that system. You're now on your 3rd mentee. Each have a story, you say, but you've now been able to see, looking back at your time in that system, how children and young people were being failed, right? Talk to us a little bit about your teaching experience.
Okay, so I was an FE teacher for 23 years and loved it, really loved it. But I never saw across the veil. You only see what you need to see. So I saw a lot of mental health issues. We had to deal with a lot of disenfranchised children. And as the years would progress, we noticed that the system was failing younger people every single year, probably the last 10 years or so of my teaching career in particular. So, for instance, funding would go down for colleges. We realised that the colleges were becoming more of a business than education, because the way the funding was given and set by the government, it restricted colleges in being able to do exactly and access whatever funds they needed without jumping through ridiculous hoops. So, you know, you might have kids coming into college who realised they didn't want to be there. They wanted to go off and work. And at that time, they could. At 16, they could go off and work. So we'd just say, great, are you sure? You'd have a chat with them. Whereas obviously later on down the line, the funding meant that if you lost children, or young people, let's call them, because it was 16 plus, then the colleges would lose money. And this is where it became a real business. And it became bums on seats. So you'd have, say, 18 young people in a class, and by the time I left there was 25. So it was becoming more like the school system, and it was shocking to see that. But you could also see the breakdown, the mental health issues. So I was a creative teacher, so I taught art, I taught graphic design, I taught illustration. So, you know, chatting to some of my peers that taught maths and psychology and things like that, there wasn't so many kids there that were struggling with mental health, but certainly the creative arts, there seemed to be a lot more. But that last 10 years, and I think particularly obviously with COVID coming through, the kids were a lot more broken. And it was really sad to see. And you couldn't manage those young people and their expectations as you could as the class sizes were getting bigger. Anyway, I decided I wanted a clean break. I wanted a change, you know, but I think my calling in life is to work with others, to support people. That's what I'm good at. And I also couldn't climb the corporate ladder in education because I'm very disagreeable with a lot of
Oh, you're not. I haven't found you disagreeable at all. I think your heart is absolutely in the right place. And probably what you've done is you've asked questions that needed to be asked, but people become so compliant in those situations. And we hear, don't we, about this kind of huge glut of young people who are unmotivated, who are out of work, who have been they're displaced, they've been betrayed by the system, but you've seen firsthand what is going on there.
Absolutely.
And it's a failure. Is it a failure of local council, of government? Where does the failure lie?
It starts at the top. It's the government, 100% with the government. I mean, I used to work off site. I know we're not talking about the exact thing that we're going on to do, but I used to actually teach off site. I would teach in daycare centres and nursing homes as part of my job. So I worked initially at my college within 4 departments. And one of them was to go off site and teach. And then the government stripped that funding. They just completely removed it. And so older people with special needs, they didn't necessarily have the access to teachers that were fully qualified in those subjects that could offer a little bit more depth to those subjects than, say, someone working in a care home teaching art. And I'm not criticizing anyone that does that, because there's a lot of fantastic people without a degree, without going through the system, that can do the job just as well as probably I can do it. But that was really sad. And to notice those sort of changes happening and occurring, that was the beginning for me to realize that education wasn't about education anymore. It's to make it into a business. And it's just sad. It's sad to see that. It's sad to see a job that I loved that I wouldn't recommend anyone teaching anymore. I wouldn't.
It's so sad, because really obviously we need teachers. We need good teachers. And one of the things that you said to me was that the EHP, which is the Education, Health and Care Plans, are poor. They're badly written. They're not substantial. Talk to us a little bit more for people who are not familiar with that.
Yeah, so, I'm just going to put my glasses on so I can actually see, because I've got loads of notes on here. So, with an EHCP plan, it's usually when youngsters, schools, primary schools, junior schools, senior schools, where they can't operate in a school. They just can't function for whatever reasons. And that could be trauma-based. It could be the fact they haven't had a diagnosis as of yet, which I'd love to talk about with you as well. And or kids just who are completely disenfranchised with the system, whole range of reasons, illnesses and so forth. So it's an educational health plan. It's meant to outline those individual needs from those youngsters, what their needs are, what's going on in their world at that particular time, how the local councils, authorities, and wherever they're going to go, how they can be supported and prepared for their next steps. So that sounds marvelous. It sounds brilliant. That's the kind of thing that needs to happen. But like you said, I've worked so far. I've only been mentoring for a year, and I've worked with 3 different families. Plus, I've got 2 friends that are in a situation as well with their young people in their household. So the EHCPs, if you've got a child, say, who's 8 or 9, and then I take them on at, say, 11 or 12, their HCP, although it's been checked every year, is often a copy and paste exercise. And I'm not saying it's like that for everyone, but it's been in my limited experience. Let me make that very clear. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. However,
but these things do feel copy and paste a lot of the time, though, don't they? I don't think you're saying anything that isn't resonating with people.
No. So, for instance, not with my current mentee, but my last mentee, the HCP, when I met the young person who was 16 at the time, I read the HCP as if she was 9 years old. And I was just like, I met her, met mum, we had a conversation. I started taking my mentee out. And I was just like, this is not who I'm beginning to know here. Nothing on that HCP screams this person. And I said to mum, have you been involved with writing the HCP? And she said, I meant to, but I haven't been. So often the HCP will be flagged up by schools. They will say, right, there's something going on here. This kid isn't meeting their targets at school, or they're bunking off school, or they're causing problems, or they're just, whatever the issue is, they will then raise a flag and say, right, we need to get some support here. if the child isn't at school, if the child's decided I can't go and the parent can't make them go, then obviously you can have other professionals then flag up the issue to get the EHCP written. However, I've got a friend who's had to go to a lawyer recently to insist to have an EHCP written for her child, because her child now wants to go to college and wants to be part of society and do incredibly well. She's very gifted and very able, but she basically had schizophrenia. And I think that was from the stresses that were coming up to knowing about her GCSE exams and so forth, and really struggled with that idea. Probably other things as well, but, you know, I don't know the context of any of that. But the council refused and said, no, we're not doing the HCP. We don't think it's necessary. Based on what?
Yeah, based on what? Because so what is it down to? Is it a lack of care? Is it a lack of resources? What do we know? Have we any idea what is the? Because all we seem to be doing is treating humans just like numbers.
Yes.
And it's just about getting people through the system, isn't it? Get people through the system, get that responsibility off my desk, on to the next one. That's what it feels a bit like. I don't
think it's actually going through the system. So I'm not, again, my local council is BCP, Bournemouth, Christchurch, Poole Council. So I'm sure people that become, say, caseworkers and so forth in those councils want to do it for the benefit. They want to do it for the greater good. They want to help people. But maybe when they take on the job, they don't realise that how many they got on their caseload. And it's overwhelming. So most of my mentees have been through at least 10 caseworkers within 8 months. And they don't get communication from them. So, for instance, me as a teacher, I had to be frontline. I taught the kids. I also had to communicate with mum and dad. I then had to write reports. And that would be 150 kids. I'd see 150 kids, you know, a week.
Whoa.
And I had to do that. And I'm kind of thinking, you might have a case and you might have 100 young people in your books. And I'm not trying to say that my job is any easier or harder than theirs. But I don't understand how the system, it's almost like the system isn't working together. It's not overlapping. You never really speak to the same person twice. So the parents that are dealing with this end up pulling their hair out. They're like, I've rang, left messages, no one picks up the phone. I've emailed, no one replies. And then I get told by someone higher up, oh no, you've got a new caseworker. But then the caseworker doesn't introduce themselves, doesn't go, hey, you know, I'm such and such, I'm now taking over. Let's have a chat. There's none of this. There should be this online way to express yourself now, either via Teams or whatever it is.
It's such a pity. Yeah, it just sounds like everybody's disillusioned from the caseworker. So what can we do? What can be done? And what do you want people to know in order to raise awareness to change this situation? Because one of the things that you said to me was, I feel it's time this issue was brought more widely into public awareness. And honestly, I don't think I've heard people say what you're saying. I don't think I've seen this as a news story, but it's clearly an issue because we talk about a disenfranchised generation of young people, but we don't appear to be doing anything for them, do we?
I mean, it's a huge void it's almost like there's a big black hole. So, you know, the EHCP may be written, may not be written. You may get caseworker, you may not get caseworker. But I tell you what, the diagnosis thing is massive. Some of these kids are waiting 2 to 4 years. I've got one mum, and I initially worked with her son for only a few months because it just didn't work out. But he's now 13, 14, which I think would be year 9. They promise a diagnosis in year 2, from year 2. Now, I know there's a 2-year wait. Okay, I understand that with the NHS because, again, funding, right? It's got to come down to funding. But this child, well, like all of them, the ones that I've worked with, they blame themselves. They take it on like, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me, you know, and then they latch on to that one parent. So far at the moment, I've worked with single mums. There hasn't been a dad really on the scene.
Right. Which is a problem. Absolutely. Our fatherless world is a problem across all cultures.
It doesn't help. And particularly because I've worked with 2 girls and 1 boy. And I noticed with the lad, he really needs a male role model. He's got a brother who's amazing with him and he absolutely idolizes his brother. But he latches onto his mum. But this is someone that really needs a diagnosis. He really needs a diagnosis because he can't function without her. But he can't, and he's got into that state. This is his world, his universe, and he doesn't do anything outside of that. So she doesn't get a break, you know. So mums don't get a break, or single dads don't get a break, because the system isn't helping. So I went in to do a bit of mentoring, and I tried lots of different things with him, and he was like, no, he's semi-mute, he will shut down, fine. But then after that, nothing. She was offered a tutor. The tutor couldn't meet the days, times that she wanted. So that disappeared. It wasn't followed up.
Right. There's a lot of instability, isn't there?
It's you know, this conversation with you, we could go on for hours about it. It's like, it's like going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Who's responsible? Who can we hold accountable? Who can we send emails to and demand they make a change?
I think it's Department of Education.
I think it is.
I really think it's them. And I again, I probably shouldn't really say this, but I don't think they necessarily want everyone to succeed and do well in life. And
of course they don't. Of course they don't. There's
money. There's money in a broken system, isn't there? There's money in pharmaceuticals. Let's get them on pills.
Yeah, 100%. There is money in a broken system, but also don't forget that our education system, and it's not changed. The curriculum has barely changed. It was designed to stock the factories. It wasn't designed to create people, critical thinkers like us, right? That wasn't designed for that. It was designed for people to be compliant, to rock up at whatever 7 o'clock in the morning and put together baskets or whatever, but something that didn't involve them thinking too much. And I don't say this in any way that is superior. I've worked in a factory, trust me, and it can be fun, but it can also be mind numbing. But the point is that's what the education system is about. So they're not really interested. But the problem is that we've got this situation where we know there's a problem with young people, but we are repeating the same mistakes. So we're not rectifying it, are we?
And no one is held accountable. And it's almost like, you know, you talk to, say, BCP, and then you want to go and talk to someone else. They don't join the dots. They don't work together. And I don't know whether it's that blame culture, you know, scared of getting sued. I don't know what it is, but no, there's no direct route. And, you know, particularly talking to families, and I've been listening in, and I've been part of interviews with BCP where we were trying to get my last mentee into a college. So she had no steps to lead on to. So she had a tutor and she had me as a mentor. And we were like, well, what's her next steps? Nothing. Total silence. And we're like, it's now April. Nothing. Terrible. So I then contacted the college I worked at. I said, hey, can we come in? They said, can we have a look at their EHCP? And they said, we can't interview her. And I went, please don't base this person on her EHCP. It's inaccurate. It's so badly written. Please meet her. And then we can go from there. And then we arranged for somewhere else, which is where she actually did go. But we did that. And so we actually eventually got her a place. And when she did meet in my college and she met a specialist, the specialist was a GOG. She was like, her EHCP is so wrong. It's so wrong. And so going forward from that, she then got 2 places. So we were like, great, she's going to start in September. And then the council went quiet again. So we're like, mum was like, excuse me, college starts. Which one is she going to? And they said, well, you know, she's going to cost us £96,000. They wrote this in an email to mum, right? Whoever did that should be blatantly held accountable. So mum was basically told, your daughter is too expensive to go to the college that she wants to go to. So we were like, but her HCP is wrong. How do you know it's going to cost that much in the first place? We got it reduced because we got hold of an incredible woman that is an advocate for young people that are disenfranchised. And she came on board. Mum had to pay a little bit of money to subsidize that, but she made a fundamental change. God, she was a powerful woman, incredible. But we got we had to rewrite the EHCP. That was me, mum, and I think the CAMS worker, right? That's just crazy. But we got the funding from 96 down to 54,000. That's a £42,000 difference. So she got into the college, but do you know when she started?
Wow.
She started in December. They dragged it out and dragged it out. You imagine what that's doing to that girl's mental health.
No. And especially we know that there are problems after C19 with the mental health of many people, including young people.
Yeah.
Kerry, it's really important you highlighting this. I know we don't necessarily have a solution, but perhaps this is step one. Perhaps this is step one of just like opening it up and continuing this conversation, because yeah, go on. Finish
I just want to say one more thing, because this is important as well. So one of my friends who I taught her daughter for a little bit at the college, but she couldn't cope because of her mental health issues. But my friend has been dealing with this situation since COVID. So COVID triggered something in her child that, and this child has tried to take her life many times, and this mother's not getting any help. And my friend has got a brain tumor. She's a sick woman. She has made that very clear to the authorities. Please, can we have some help? I'm having to set my alarm 3 or 4 times a night, and I check to make sure my daughter's breathing. She's gone down to A&E many times with her daughter, and they just send her home. And also she's dropped loads of weight, so she's now probably bulimic or whatever. But so she spoke to someone on the phone, and they went, "Oh, bring her in when she's 6.5 stone." And she said she'd be dead by then.
Oh my God.
This is massive. This is just massive. What do you do with any of that? You know,
yeah.
You continue this together.
You're doing good. It's hard. It's very hard. I don't claim that we've got any solutions here and now, but I think I do actually believe that once we give vent to an idea and put it out into the universe, lots of other things kind of gather around to, to bring focus and attention to it. So unfortunately, we can't give you any solutions, but I do more power to your elbow, Kerry, for highlighting it. It needs to be highlighted. Keep in touch with me, right? Let's keep this as a trundling on conversation and see what we can do. Okay.
Can I just add one more thing? I know you've got to go. I'm really
quickly. Go on.
Yeah, just so often the council will say, right, we've got alternative provisions for these youngsters, but I don't like this word SEND, S-E-N, I can't stand it. But a lot of these alternative provisions are for very, let's say, youngsters who really need additional support, like incredible support. Whereas the youngsters that I know are very bright and very capable. So therefore, those provisions are not suitable, but they're cheaper. But you can't send a youngster who wants to learn, who's smart, who's clever, into an establishment where it's not based on qualifications, which is fine, but it's not an environment for them. But they want to send them there because it's cost effective.
It's cheaper. Oof, awful. How cheap is life? Kerry, thank you for being here this morning and highlighting this.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Take good care of yourself, everybody. This is Kerry, and she's out there fighting for our kids. Lovely, wonderful girl. Wonderful. Thank you.
Bye.
Painful though, because the problem is that when you cannot find a solution, but you just have to give, because she just has to give vent to it for now, because there do not appear to be any immediate solutions. Gina said, I hated school, both primary and secondary, felt very much like a loner and disconnected, but did sort of okay in O levels. Things were different back then though. We used to get the cane. Did you get the cane, Gina? Jeepers, I came from the kind of family that if they'd have attempted something like that, I would have probably ripped it out of their hands and whipped them with it. That's just the kind of mother I was raised by. Lenticular Cloud said parents can make an EHCP without the council, etc. I believe. I don't know about that. And Cappuccino said most times they're rejected. If you apply 3 times, it can go to court. Mel says it's noticeable that in disadvantaged areas, Microsoft's tablets are prevalent and the art of writing is non-existent. The curriculum has no imagination anymore, all very generic stuff produced. Indeed. And Sonia, says Catherine, you've just voiced what Gaz and I were speaking about yesterday. Not sure which part that was, but I'm glad to hear that, Kath. Glad to hear it indeed. Right, let me just remove that. And it's frustrating. It's awful. But the insane thing is the newspapers constantly publish this whole idea that young people are struggling, that they're disenfranchised. But what is actually being done to help them? If there's that level of confusion, there is a lot of young people who are obviously suffering with mental health issues following C19. We know that unquestionably. John Hendon has talked about that with us. We know it. So it's bad. Right. Want to talk about something else briefly before I bring in our next guest. Did anybody see RFK Jr. talking about child trafficking, because I don't know why there's not more of an uproar. This is literally somebody in the Trump's administration talking about widespread child trafficking. Let me bring this in. I had to listen to it over and over and over again to get my head around it. Check this out, people. It starts by saying that essentially the American government under Biden was involved in child trafficking. Check this out.
Did HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
So, I mean, the thing is, whatever you think about him, that's astonishing what he's saying. He's saying that 300,000 children are missing in the US under Biden's administration. Wait, what? I mean, can we all get our head around it? I just don't understand why this is not all over the news. I don't get it. That seems like a huge admission from somebody in a senior position. Yes, Anne-Marie, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Mel Gibson did make that film. And again, that was just very much talked about on the sort of alternative circuit. And it pains me that legacy media just won't go into this, won't delve into this kind of area. It really pains me. But yeah, Peter, good for him for highlighting it. I mean, I have my own criticisms about him, obviously, but I'm dealing with people, whether it's Trump, whether it's Kennedy or whomever, on a moment by moment basis. What are they actually doing? Right? Not what are they saying, what are they actually doing? But a statement like that is powerful. It's still powerful. It's still powerful. And right, Diddy trial preparation. This is interesting. Obviously, Sean Diddy Combs is set to stand trial next week in relation to 2 charges of sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, along with a charge of racketeering, conspiracy, and 2 charges of transportation to engage in prostitution. He's denied all charges against him. He's pleaded not guilty. Jury selection starts Monday. It's slated for then, and that's when we'll get further details of the trial. The opening statements for the trial are expected to begin on the 12th of May. This will be when both sides are given the chance to set out their arguments, put forward their evidence. Combs is in jail right now. He's actually at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. The other high-profile inmate there is Luigi Mangione, who stands accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on December the 4th, 2024. And Combs has just won the right to wear his own clothes at trial. And this is oftentimes the defense will argue for this, because the rationale is if prisoners show up in prison garb, it automatically creates a visual that they're guilty. So anyway, he's allowed to wear his own clothes. There are some kind of rules and regulations involved in that. He can't have shoelaces, for one example, because of, health and safety risks. Well, because he'll trip over his own shoe. I don't know. Well, anyway, but he can't have that. But yes, so he's just won the right to wear his own clothes. So again, this is going to be interesting. Of course, they've tried to throw out the video, I think, where a lot of this hinges on, which involves his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, where he's beating her up in a hotel corridor, and which he paid money to the hotel to keep the video footage hidden forever. And then it surfaced about 8 years later. But he's denied that. They've said that the footage has been manipulated, has been tampered with. Yeah, all of those things may be possible, but that doesn't alter the fact that we all saw him dragging her by her hair, kicking her while she was on the floor. Okay. And he never denied any of that. When that video finally surfaced, even despite him paying off the hotel and doing all manner of things to keep that video hidden, when that video finally surfaced, he came out and he was apologetic about it. Not once did he deny the events of that video. So I'm taking it that at the very least, Sean Puffy Combs is a woman beater. At the very least, because we've seen that, we've seen that with our own eyes. Right. Let us Yes, Soul Sound, there is a lot of serious legal business this first month of May, indeed. Yes, Randy, I'm trying to behave myself. Right, I want to bring in my next guest, and so much is happening on the world stage. It's actually phenomenal. Jean, thank you for being with us. I can't believe everything that happened yesterday. My mind is absolutely blown. Jean HATCHET, everybody. She's, of course, writer. She's an activist. She's been with us a few times. We've been talking about a continuing conversation about the Supreme Court ruling and what has happened as a consequence of that. Jean, what happened yesterday in the world of women's sport?
Well, the FA announced that they were returning fair sport to women by excluding men who say they are women from playing in women's football, something they should have done, a very, very long time ago. It should never have happened in the first place, but they've been really dragging their heels, and the FA were one of the biggest, and obviously they're one of the wealthiest organisations representing players. So once they fell, I think everybody else went, okay, the game's up. So then netball and cricket fell into line, all saying, unlike has been reported, that they will return women's sport to be exclusively for women. The narrative obviously ran out that it was banning trans women, which is, it's just returning fair sport, which women have asked for. A number of bodies and various individuals have been calling for many years now. And so it was simply, the culmination of all of that activism and all of that work and the Supreme Court judgment, which meant that finally, women have what they should have, which is fair competition and safe competition.
I mean, you're absolutely right. There's so much that has led up to this, and fair play for women. They were right there from the get-go, weren't they? Battling this out, as indeed you have been, and other people. But this is, I think, what they needed. All of these organizations, all these bodies, they just needed that judgment, didn't they? To say, oh, it's okay. We can do what is actually the right thing to do. That's because it's cowardice at the end of the day. They weren't prepared to stand up to it. But the spell is now broken, isn't it? It's done, isn't it?
I mean, some are still saying that they're holding out, like darts, for example, are saying, no, we won't change anything. And then they're just going to be left with egg on their faces, because the Supreme Court judgment will mean that they have to. I'm not sure that, it did need the public pressure. I really think it needed public pressure too, and the pressure of women's rights organisations. If they could have held out, they would have. And as we've seen this morning, you've got a man saying he will have to be dragged off the pitch, that he will not stop playing as a result. His name is Faithful Konis. And he has said, you'll have to drag me off the pitch. And that's the entitlement and also the aggression of these men. And they're going to demand the sympathy of the women who play alongside them, because that's, this sympathy narrative is all over the press. Like, feel sorry for these men. No, these men are entitled. They've been where they shouldn't be. They have been hurting women. I've had pictures sent to me of women with their legs, in pieces after a match with 3 or 4 of these men. And yet we're still being asked to feel sorry for them. They'll keep this up. We've got to keep saying no.
We do have to keep saying no, and you're absolutely right. There's lies put out there, this whole idea that transgender people are banned from sport. No, they're not. We're just asking trans people, like everybody else, to be in the sport of their sex. That's simply all we're asking, right? Nothing more, nothing less. And I would like to point out, and I'm sure you will agree with me on this, that for the most part, these men who have put themselves in female sports are mediocre at best. They cannot compete against their own sex, can they? And that is why they've chosen the easy option. That's not to downgrade women's sports at all, but we are physiologically different. That's a proven fact, right?
Yes. I mean, someone spoke to me recently and said it was the man whose partner had been kicked in a match, and he said that some of these players were actually almost good enough to play on men's teams, and one in particular he mentioned that was incredibly skilled, and that if those players are playing in the women's game, it would only take 2 or 3 of them to win everything. So eventually women would have been excluded. Whether some of these men will be able to make a living for themselves in the men's game is not really the business of women. We don't have to be concerned where these men play now. We don't have to be concerned about whether they ever play again, or if they can only go down the park and play together. It's not the business of women. The business of women is fair and safe sport.
It's hurt my heart a lot over the last 5-6 years when I see these men in, winning cycling races, boxing women. It's very painful to watch because it's abusive, and that for the most part these men are autogynephiles. We know that part of it is they're getting turned on by the whole idea that they're being accepted as the other sex, and obviously there's these handmaidens who are enabling them. But you're absolutely right. None of this is our business anymore. You've actually done what needed to be done. And thank God for that. I'm so grateful for organizations like you, boots on the ground. And Jean, you're nothing if not a boot on the ground gal. You get out there, don't you? You got out there again yesterday. What did you do yesterday?
Yesterday we had someone contacted me yesterday with pictures of a bookshop very close to me, actually, who were hosting a trans suicide narrative in the window. It's a children's bookshop. Very young children visit there regularly. I used to take my daughter there when she was little, and they've got a narrative in the window saying 48% of children who identify as trans will try to commit suicide, and various other very, very alarming statistics, which one, inaccurate, and two, have been shown to be dangerous, and the NHS have asked that those statistics aren't used. And there they are, right in a very, very busy footfall area. So we went down to ask the bookshop, and also they had a big list of what originally said trans people who were killed as a result of being trans, murdered. And the majority of those men, and they were all men on that list, had not been murdered at all. They had they died in other circumstances. So Neil Port, for example, Penny Port, had been killed by his son, who was actually defending his mother against a father who'd returned and was being violent in the home, being aggressive in the home. And then 2 or 3 of these men had taken their lives in prison while on remand, waiting trial for violent crimes that they committed. So, these, and we went in, and the young women were very vehement that they had the correct statistics in the window until it was pointed out. So, we went down to challenge that. They were young women. They were very clueless, but they were still very defiant that they were doing the right thing, and, they were doing the right thing for the trans community. So these dangerous narratives are still out there. They're still being shown to children. And I don't know quite what we do about that, except challenge it at source, which is what we did.
And you did, and you'll keep on doing that, of course, and that is the way it's going to work, really. I mean, it's frustrating because we're having to unpack all the rights that we've already long won, right? So that's already frustrating, very frustrating for people like you. You're right there at the coalface, but you kind of love it as well, don't you, Jean? Because I've seen you in these environments, right? And you come alive, right? Everybody has a role. Everybody has a role, but you absolutely come alive in these very challenging environments. What is it, I think, about your character that makes you like that?
It's not. It's really hard, actually. I find it hard.
Really?
Yeah. We were just sat in the park, and we knew we got to do it, and I'm very nervous. And then afterwards, I'm nervous. And
Never know that.
Well, because you sort of bolster yourself and you go and do what needs to be done for women. But this is not something I enjoy. I'd rather sit at home in the garden, with my woman. That would be lovely. But this is what needs doing, because other people don't feel like they can do it. And so can you go and do it? Can you do this thing? And so I smile and I put on the face, and off we go. And I try and stay very calm and just put across facts to people that are not giving true facts to the people around them, like in this example, children. This is a children's bookshop, and that's disgusting. And people who contacted me were like, we're outraged, but I've got a position in the community doing this. I don't want to be seen.
Exactly.
This is a difficult area, and it is very middle class academics, doctors, everybody's on board with this stupid narrative. So it does need somebody like me who's not afraid and doesn't care and will risk other people saying they're a bad and evil person, and go in there and do what needs doing. So no, I don't enjoy it.
Oh, well, you do it. You do it very well. You look as if you enjoy it, but you know, whatever it takes, basically, you know, you're the woman for the job. I'm in no doubt about that whatsoever. So what's next on your activism table, Jean? Now you've got all this kind of sorted out bit by, and it is lovely to see it. And I love also seeing the camaraderie that exists online and the embracing of people. Obviously, it is predominantly women who have done this, but also some men have got involved as well, who understand the problems here. So what is next for you?
I don't know, Sonia, because it's really worrying me watching the backlash to this and sort of the way that we're still everything's being reframed. So women were mean and unkind and even, you know, not polite if we ask men to get out of toilets and get out of this. And, you know, now we're not just unkind or mean, we're evil. We're being demonized. So the press are on board with this demonization. I don't know where this goes next, but I do worry a little bit that women who have fought very hard and have faces at the front of this will become targets for very vengeful, narcissistic men. And I think they are vengeful. And yeah, that it's not about what we do next. It's mainly about what they do next. And we've got to keep pushing, I think. I don't think we sit back now. And even though we're having the odd celebration, I think there's more to come. I think there's a lot more to do.
Lots of wonderful comments to you in there. Marcuson said, another woman with balls. I think G might say with ovaries, Marcuson. But he said,
balls is fine.
Great. Well, he said, I effing love them. Thank you. Thank you. The return of women with balls and ovaries, whichever way you want to look at it. Jean, you are a star. Absolutely, you are. As indeed everybody else involved with you. Everybody says Jean Hatchett. Please support her.
Too, by the way. You too, Sonia. You've done your part. Always.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourself. Have a beautiful, beautiful bank holiday weekend. Jean Hatchett, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Lovely. Isn't she lovely? I think she's great, actually. She's gutsy. I mean, however she sees herself, I see her as a formidable individual. She is formidable. Yes, she is. I love strong women, says Stephen. Indeed. We need strong women. We need strong men. But it's also okay to be weaker. It's also okay to be vulnerable. I want to live in a society where the strong amongst us can take care of those who feel less capable of standing up to the system. That's the society I want to be involved in. Yes, indeed. Right. What shall I talk about before we bring in our next guest? Because the next guest is going to upset me. I'm going to tell you straight, right? Probably going to upset me. And not through any fault of his, but because of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about animal experimentation. So I'm going to give you a massive big heads up there. Beautiful people. A massive, massive big heads up. Let me just see what I can refer to. What's that, Jack? What are we talking about? What are we talking about, beautiful people? There was something I wanted to draw on before we went to our next guest. No, I've done that. Right. Let me come to the comments. Turn volume off if kids are listening. Trigger warning. Marco, what I'm going to do is, prior to talking to our guests, when I can see it, I cannot do it. Sorry, Sonia. I know, Jennifer. I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. And lovely Rachel, one of our viewers, had written in. She was absolutely distressed and so disturbed about what was taking place. It's Camp Beagle in Cambridge. It's a permanent protest camp. And hopefully we can be joined very shortly by John from the camp, because we need to raise more awareness to it. It's awful. John became Jack, but how did that happen? Some things have to be discussed. They do. Unfortunately, they do. And it's horrible and it's heartbreaking. I wonder if I've got time actually to talk. Let me talk about Virginia Giuffre, first of all. Virginia Giuffre's father, obviously Virginia Giuffre, we were told took her own life a week ago, yesterday. Her father has now come out and said that there's absolutely no way his daughter took her own life. He appeared on the Piers Morgan show. Let me just show you an image. Did I bring up an image? I did. Here we go. And her father, Sky Roberts, said absolutely no way did his daughter take her life. And it's really difficult, right? This is a grieving man, so I'm going to be really, really careful. But by his own admission, he hadn't seen her for years. He doesn't know where she was at. he says that she was too strong-willed to take her own life, but they were clearly estranged. And then what happened on the Piers Morgan show is actually really painful to watch the clip. And then they featured Victoria Harvey, and she's obviously a huge critic of Virginia, but that's primarily because Victoria Harvey used to date Prince Andrew and is very much about upholding the House of Windsor and the British establishment. So obviously she attacked Virginia on that basis, right? But she was there on the Piers Morgan show, and the stuff that she was saying to Sky Roberts made me sick to the core. She was really trying to get him to say, to like besmirch his daughter. She was saying things like, it would have been really nice if she'd have like financially supported you. And he was talking about how he's on Social Security. And obviously Virginia had over a period of time been given millions in settlements, including Epstein and Prince Andrew. And Victoria Harvey was trying to, basically say she wasn't a very nice daughter, was she? She didn't take care of you. And all of that just was nasty. This is a grieving father. It's a grieving father. But the reality still is that he doesn't know. He has not been in contact with his daughter for years. By his own admission, he hasn't seen her for years. But it was really sad. But one of the things that he said, which I thought was quite illuminating and quite interesting, and that was, he said that on the occasions when he's been to Australia 4 or 5 times, every time, he said, it ended really badly because of Virginia's husband. That's what he said on Piers Morgan's show. And he talked about how his daughter is someone who had made a good situation out of a bad situation. And honestly, parent to parent, my heart broke for him. But, and I'm going to be really clear about this, I'm really uncomfortable at Piers Morgan, again, being at the center of all this stuff. So the way I worked it was that Piers Morgan was with Ghislaine Maxwell at this book launch in 2013. And Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, was somebody who had recruited Virginia. And then fast forward to 2025, Virginia is dead and Piers Morgan is interviewing her father. That makes me uncomfortable. Those series of events make me uncomfortable. Morgan is just horrible. He's a horrible, horrible individual. Yes, indeed, he is. Let me just see. And we don't know the full story. Life circumstance behind the scenes with his relationship with his daughter and his own life before parenthood. Absolutely, Darren. And I make no judgment about him as a father because we simply don't know. But all I'm saying is that he's a grieving father. And I felt that dragging him across the Piers Morgan show was really inappropriate, especially when you have harridan like Victoria Harvey seeking to question him and try and pull down his daughter to his face. Yes, Humphrey, I was not a fan of Amy Winehouse's mother or father. Both of them obviously appeared to make much out of their famous daughter, certainly the father. Yes, Crafty Kim, Virginia was also estranged from her mother. So complex family life because she'd been abused from a very early age. Very complex family life. By her own account, she had been molested at the age of 7. She was put into foster care. She was reunited with her father at 14. He was working at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's place. And it was, he then got Virginia a job. And it was at being at Mar-a-Lago where Virginia met Maxwell and eventually Epstein. Let me just double check that my man at Camp Beagle is all right. Okay, can't see anything there. Hopefully, please join us. Please join us. Going on Piers' show like he hasn't already suffered enough. Right. A bit of a climb down from calling people ghouls with an abhorrent outburst on Wednesday. What are we talking about, Paul? What are we talking about? Me or Piers Morgan? Because I'm not climbing down from anything. I remain absolutely of the mind that there are absolute ghouls out there, influencers, and I'm talking people like Russell Brand who have no care or concern about Virginia and went immediately for the whole idea that she was taken out, right? So I'm not climbing down from that at all. I stick by that. Yes, I am. But I don't know if you're talking about me. You might be, might not be. Intuition. And And Piers and Maxwell, friends of old, although he denied that. He said he only met her once at a book launch. Come on, John, come here from Camp Beagle. Otherwise, I'm going to have to talk through the story on my own, which I really don't necessarily want to. But let's see. By avoiding my questions, you do identify as being UK British, anti-English Christian, doesn't it? Nobble, I have no idea what you're talking about. You just admitted by let me just tell you, I think that when people think if you don't answer a question that you are admitting it, that is one of the kind of lowest forms of intelligence that we have. Sometimes people don't answer questions because they're beneath them. I think you need to understand that. And I'm not anti-British, not at all, but I'm not particularly patriotic either. And I don't run along with the crowd on that. But I am about truth. And I see that uncontrolled immigration is a problem. And if it was up to me, I would remove every border in every country all over the world and let people just be exactly where they want to be because it's our world. That's what I would do. That's literally what I would do. We're too heavily governed and by all the wrong people and with agendas. So I think. And ever worked for the BBC? Have I ever worked for the BBC as a freelancer? I worked on the Stephen Nolan show. Like they'd bring me in to be a talking head, as they call them. I'm worried that John might be having some difficulty joining us. So I'm going to start with a video that I made because I don't want to delay this anymore. This is a video that I made in 2021. So Camp Beagle, as I say, is an industrial factory in Cambridge where they breed beagles and then they sell them to laboratories to experiment on. And it is a permanent camp. And in 2021, I went there at Christmas, give them supplies and various other things, the campers there. And I made a video and the link is in the description below, but this was part of it. We're outside MBR Acres in Huntingdon, Cambridgeshire, and they are industrially breeding beagles in there for experimentation, which is an absolute failure, up to 96% failure rate. And the workers have just come out, some of them putting their finger up to us, and there was a police van up there that waited to escort them out safely. That is on your taxpayer money and my taxpayer money, and this has to stop. There is abject cruelty taking place in there. It's an American company and British taxpayers are funding it in the sense of security for these people. It's not acceptable. It's not okay. There's a lot of people that have been here for months camping out, and we've come here today to bring some supplies and just show some solidarity with what these people are doing, standing up for the beagles. Exactly. And as I say, it's a 98% failure rate. There is absolutely no logical reason why we should be using animals for any form of experimentation. And it's absolutely brilliant because John has literally just popped. John, you're here. It's wonderful to have you.
Of course I'm here, as if I'd let you down.
I know, you're a sweetheart.
Sorry, there's always things happening here, though.
Of course there is. I just want to tell you, I just played the intro video of when I came to Camp Beagle before in 2021. I just told people about the 98% failure rate. There is absolutely no reason for animal experimentation in this world at all. John, why are you there? Oh, he's gone. He's gone. He's coming back. He's coming back. He will be back. But I loathe all forms of animal experimentation. My attitude is if human beings want to be sure that something is safe, then just be the experiment. Do not use animals for your experimentation. Here he is back again. John.
Technical hitches is a hallmark of Camp Beagle. But I'll tell you now, we're ready to go. Let's go. I like the thing in front of me. Wake up.
Thank you. Good. Wonderful. So as I say, I've been there before and it's abhorrent. How many beagles are we talking about goes through?
Horrendous. You are next to this place here. Can you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
No bedding. Not even a dog bowl. They never see the sky. You are next to now 1,500 dogs. You won't hear a thing. They're all in soundproof buildings.
It's just horrendous. How long have you been there, John?
3 years and 9 months by the side of this road. If you'd have asked me 3 years and 9 months ago, John, do you want to live next to a dog factory? Of course I'd have said, you must be joking. It would be impossible. I couldn't do that. But here we are, free. Never give up has become, it's not a slogan for us. We're going to be here until this place shuts down. We've had 3 parliamentary petitions. The last one got 100,000 signatures in 4 days, for God's sake. We've built up so much public awareness, but we need to build more and more and more. We're going to get the job done. But it's to be honest, and we've won all the arguments, like in Parliament the other day. I'm kind of sick of winning the arguments. Because this is meant to be science. Yeah, they'll never, ever find a scientist. There's one person that they use, and he's a paid lobbyist from the industry. You won't get anyone to defend what's happening there. So you're next to 1,500 dogs, and you shouldn't be able to hear me speak now, but you won't hear a thing.
I can't bear it. I literally can't bear it. I've obviously seen some of the imagery. I've been there and I've seen the workers come out, and the workers are so arrogant. I remember being there, and one worker came out in the car and she was like putting her middle finger up to us and everything, like total arrogance. Do you have to be a psychopath to work in a place like that? Or do you think it just helps?
Oh, yeah, a psychopath, a sociopath, a crushed person with no dreams left. You'll get the sadists. Imagine the job interview. You mean, imagine everything they do here is secret. They take the phones off the workers, for God's sake. They come in and, yeah, that's the first thing they do in the morning. They all come up balaclavaed up. They go inside there. They don't pick these people because they like dogs. These dogs are going to get tortured. They never get out. They never go for a walk. Yet they walk in this morning. They left the dogs, 8-week-old puppies. Mother's giving birth for overnight. The workers left at 4 p.m. yesterday, and they arrive at 8 a.m. today. It's all shit everywhere. Imagine them little puppies jumping up on you. Get down, get down. They don't. Again, how can you have here people? And lots of people come here though who like dogs. You see the job advert. Do you want to learn a qualification in animal welfare? Do you want a career in looking after animals? You come here. So many, in the 3 years, 9 months, I can't tell you how many different workers have come and gone. It's got a very high turnover, but it's got your hardcore. And when we talk about sadists, you think of like, I don't know, interesting, dynamic people. No, I think there's that famous book about the Nazis, the banality of evil. These people are banal, but they're able to. I got to cross-examine the workers. They spent £4 million on an injunction to try and get rid of us. But I managed to cross-examine some of them. One of the questions I asked, the first question I would ask all of them, how does it feel to be called a puppy killer? Oh, it's not nice. We're not puppy killers. I would then explore that. What about the terminal bleeding procedure? There's a clue in the name. And one witness, I said, you're a puppy killer. And he's like, no, I'm not. And I said, what, do you kill cats then? Do you kill cats? He goes, no, dogs. And I said, sorry, I'll take it back. You're not. Is it better if I call you dog killer? Or is that rest better on your shoulders? But one of the witnesses, I said to her, she'd worked here for 30 years, for God's sake, sending animal puppies off to be tortured. I said, in this time, come on. In the 30 years, surely you've developed one emotional bond. What about one that you couldn't, because they never give them names. They're told never to give them names. What about little Daisy, the one with the limp, or the one with the funny bark? Surely. And she said, I have an emotional bond with all the dogs here.
I mean,
in the laboratory, let me go and sorry. In the laboratory. I witnessed a van go this week from here 5 miles up the road to LabCorp. This place was set up in the 70s as the dog factory to supply Europe's largest toxicology test, which used to be known as Huntingdon Research Centre, Huntingdon Life Science. Then it was known as Envigo. Then it was known as Covance. Now it's called LabCorp. That's a place where undercover people caught them punching dogs in the face. These beagles had to have 9 injections a day. Even these two here, you try and put 9 injections into these two. Well, my little baby, let me show you Pepe. She just fed.
Oh, you are a star, John. You absolutely are.
Everybody's going to fight back. So when the dogs were wiggling, beagles are picked. 70 years ago, they were unfortunate enough to be picked by the chemical industry. These are the animals we're going to experiment on. And the reason for that is because they don't bite back. They freeze. If you try and put 9 injections into little Pepper, even though she's lovely and harmless, eventually she's going to bite back. The beagles don't, bless them.
And that's why they pick them, isn't it? Because they're so soft and gentle and sort of want to please. It's awful. It's industrial.
And now they have 70 years worth of data that they say justifies a continuation. No, because we can't stop experimenting with beagles because this is our entire data bank. Right. Every chemical you come across today, all the insecticide, the pesticide, the food additives, all of it is gone onto the market after it was tested on dogs and mice. So
there's a whole load of stuff you can buy that isn't animal experimentation, right? People are first of all, Queen Bee in the comments said, how do I donate to this man, to this cause, Sonia? How
you can donate with your love and your compassion and your support and your willingness. Now you've woken up. I've got these big letters in front of me. Wake up. We need to wake up. You will never see Camp Beagle asking for money. That's not what we're about. This is all volunteers, but everything you can see in front of you, this is our this is our headquarters. Everything given, everything donated. So come by, come and have a cup of tea, packet of biscuits. We've got a website. Here you go, folks.
Hello.
Grab that coffee.
Hello, Camp Beagle.
Hey.
Hello.
Thank you for being there. We really appreciate you being out there.
Someone said, how can they donate to us? I said, with love, compassion, support. If people want to give us money, and we need money to keep going, but to be honest, if someone gave us £1 million today, what are we going to do with £1 million? Right. You know, like £1 million isn't going to do this. Love, compassion, dedication, determination.
I love your heart, John. We love your heart. We absolutely do. The name of the US company you own is it ABR Acres? What's the name of the company?
MBR and Marshall Bioresources. Listen to that word. That's what these dogs are not dogs. They don't get treated as dogs. Like I said, the workers have only gone in 2 hours ago after leaving them since 4 o'clock yesterday. They never see the sky. They never get to run. They are bioresources for the company. But that's what the dog is to them, a bioresource. And they treat them like cardboard box. It's like a cardboard box factory. At the weekend, you know what time the workers leave? They leave it on a weekday. I couldn't believe it. I've worked in dog places all over the world. Jamaica, Sri Lanka, up and down this country in dogs rescue shelters. Here they leave all the dogs at 4 p.m, leaving only security. At weekends, it goes down to 11 a.m. They finish work at 11 a.m. I can see your mouth open. I've known about this place for decades. I went to prison 30 years ago for raiding this place, for taking 82 dogs out of here. I got in prison for 18 months. That was 35 years ago, actually. I knew about this place. When I came here as Camp Beagle, we're like the nosy neighbours, you know, the curtain twitchers. Like, here we are, right outside the gates. When we started to notice, oh my God, there's no one here after 4 o'clock. And then at a weekend, it's like, what? There's 1,500 dogs. There's 8-week-old puppies that get left from 11 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next morning. Have you got dogs? Are you a dog woman? Have you ever brought up puppies? Have you ever had the puppies at that age, eight weeks?
So my last dog was a Westie who we believe was puppy farmed and had a very, very difficult life, but she was absolutely wonderful and we loved her, obviously. Our not new dogs, we've had her 5 years. We rescued from Romania. She was a street dog. She'd been brutalized. So I love dogs. I absolutely love dogs. It hurts my heart what you're saying there.
If you were gonna bring up a dog, if you had an 8-week-old puppy now, what would your rough feeding regime be in terms of feeding per amounts of time? In a 12-hour period, how often would you feed that puppy? What would be a normal?
Well, probably little and relatively often.
Exactly, little and often. Here, there's an alarm going off. I'm going to have to run, see what that is.
Oh, what's going on?
Ugh. Puppy killing, that's what's going on.
John, you are literally...
You got this. Hey, look, do you want to say anything live till program Wake Up? Here's your golden chance, unedited.
Let's hear it.
Come on.
Let's hear it. Good on you, John. Go on, John. Go there.
Come on, speak. You're the new spokesman for the company, aren't you? Unbelievable, isn't it? So yes, it's the car, but we get very around this time of day is when the white vans come to pick up the puppies. The impact vans. Labcore in Huntingdon, Sequani in Herefordshire, Charles River in Scotland. They take them 6 miles up to Scotland, and those dogs are going to be used. I wish what I was saying wasn't true, because it's ridiculous. In 70-year-old toxicology tests that haven't changed one bit. The dogs that I see leaving the van this week will get used for toxicology tests for a chemical compound, and those tests will be the same tests as whether 10 years ago and 20 years ago, 30 years ago and 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Think of the mobile phone I'm talking on now. Think of the computer capacity. It's this little mobile phone, right, has got more computer capacity than the entire NASA space missions of the 70s, which wouldn't have fitted inside a cathedral. Science is meant to move on. This is stuck in the 50s.
It's a financial issue, though, isn't it? It's got to be financial.
Only financial. Financial in terms, yes, totally financial, institutionalized government corruption by listening only to multinational corporations. This is how they've done it, and the interesting thing though, the industry, they are going to change it. The writing's on the wall. The big breakthroughs have been made in the past few weeks in America. The industry know they're going to have to change. The days are gone when they can put someone on telly with a suit on and a shirt and tie, say these tests are perfectly acceptable and safe. The Home Office did it the other day, but no one else is doing that. So, but changing, I know it's very frustrating. This place, if Camp Beagle goes away today, this place will be shut down. But within the next, say, 10 years or 20 years, that's no good. When we see those vans leaving here,
it needs to happen today. It should have happened yesterday. It should have happened years ago. I cannot believe that I came there in 2021 and you're still enduring it. And thank you to viewer Rachel, who was absolutely heartbroken. She's the one who wrote to me and said, I can't believe this is taking place. But so what happened in Parliament this week, John?
Amazing, 100,000 signatures in 4 days. That's phenomenal. What happened was there was a couple of things I didn't expect. I didn't expect the speeches to be so good, and for the MPs to understand the issue. They looked into it. They kind of, it's difficult to come out of my lips. Those MPs that went to the debate, they really did react on behalf of their constituents and did a bloody good job and making the case for our petition of we need something doing. And this is a perfect opportunity for the UK to step up and actually get something done, and perhaps even go back to the point where we get known as that nation of animal lovers again. We've lost that reputation. But the Home Office, what shocked me about the Home Office, and normally in a kind of debate like that, where it's overwhelmingly on our side, in order for the greasy pole of politics, they'll give you a crumb off the table. There wasn't a crumb off the table from the Home Office. Right, check this out. The Labour Party, just like Tony Blair did back in the day, Tony Blair promised, there's a picture of a man who died on bloody hunger strike in prison because of animal experiments and Tony Blair's lies. Barry Horn. He died in bloody prison on hunger strike because Tony Blair had come down from the heavens to take away the Thatcher era, and he said there's going to be a full royal commission into animal experiments. When he got in, he reversed that and had a clamp down against animal rights activists instead. This time round, Keir Starmer promised everyone we're going to phase out animal testing. That's what they said, didn't it? You hear the words of the mouth of the minister the other day, who, by the way, in the past has supported our petitions, but now she's been appointed as a government minister. She didn't write the speech she read out. That was meant to be an answer to the debate. It was pre-written before the debate. But that clearly, and it was a glowing praise of animal testing. Animal testing is valuable, it's necessary, it's scientific. Why phase out, Labour, something that you're now saying is so brilliant? How can you it's like a car company saying they're going to phase out the wheel. If animal testing is this brilliant as what that minister said on Monday, then don't phase it out because it saves babies' lives. You can't phase it out if it's so fantastic. They're liars.
No way. They are absolute liars. We know that. We know that.
Well, we know that.
There's a failure rate. We absolutely know it. They're up to their eyeballs. They're compromised. That's the word I'm looking for.
I mean, the failure rate is 96%. It's not a figure 96%. I often use because people don't believe it. But that's the figure that the scientists are now saying.
Exactly. No, that's a reality. I don't buy any. I don't eat animals, but I don't buy any products that involve animal experimentation.
Flipping a coin will give you a 50% failure rate, but it'll also give you a 50% success rate. Flipping a coin to see whether these chemicals are safe will be far more scientific than experiment on a mouse doesn't tell you what's going to happen to a rat. Experiment on a rat doesn't tell you what's going to happen to a cat. Exactly. When you're sick, if your children were sick, would you take your children to the vet? It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. And it's one of the massive crimes of the 20th century when we handed responsibility over to bloody multinational corporations to look after us. Wow.
We need you empowered, John. That's what we need. But what can we do? Because we're out here and we're all angry and we want to tear them from limb to limb with our bare hands. What can we actually do?
What can you actually do? Stick with it. I haven't, that's the sort of existential, all important question. And everyone wants answers now. You want me to tell you something that is going to get rid of it? I don't know. No. Except stick with it. Be creative. Add some new. I'm exhausted like you don't know. Oh.
It is hard. It is hard. What you're doing, being there on the front line, it's really, really hard. You all right? I've done this for
decades now. I've been involved with undercover dog fighting rings and against greyhound racing, slaughterhouses. I've seen it all. This is one of the toughest gigs I've ever done. So people watching, what you can do is bloody help me and Pepe out to go and run around in the mountains. Because look, here we are now. I want to leave here. We want to pack up Camp Beagle, so help us. Come here on May the 24th is our next demo. But the thing, do you know, like in martial arts, you have it, in meditation, you have it, the beginner's mind. One of my best years that I ever got involved with was when I first found out about it. And I was so angry. I had so much energy. So all the people that are just finding out about it, and we live in a world where everyone wants someone else to do something for them. You know what I mean? Yeah. But add your creative new energy to this, and it's don't think, oh, I don't know, because how can I tell someone who's been doing it for 40 years what to do? No, I'm burnt out, fucked up. I'm just about keeping going. But we need new ideas. We need new energy. Come here for a cup of tea if you ever can. We really thrive on people. We've had the kettle on for 3 years and 9 months. It's an extraordinary project, and it goes way beyond these dogs. For me, of course, it's about these dogs, and that's why I'm here. But there's so many different other issues that this touches upon. So I haven't got the magic answer. We've just done the petition. We just got 100,000 signatures in 4 days. But you just have to keep going. Like, it's not called a struggle for nothing.
You're absolutely right, mate. Absolutely right, indeed. Thank you so much for being here with us. I think it's
sorry
really
for being
powerful. Late. We don't care.
Were you panicking?
No, not at all. I played the video. I was only a little bit like, oh, please let him turn up, just because I know how important this story is, right? And I knew that you'd be able to bring the required passion to this conversation, because obviously it has to stop. And you're absolutely right, because there's no magic elixir that's just suddenly going to stop this, and we have to just keep on. You're right, it's a struggle.
We've got so much stuff to put out. You're talking, what we're up against is the Home Office, really. And you think the Home Office, right, they're in charge of the prisons, judiciary, immigration, terrorism, blah, blah, blah. Yvette Cooper is directly responsible for these dogs. They're the only dogs that she's got on her inbox. Do you know what I mean? What's the Home Office doing with this? It's because of the secrecy. Why the secrecy when it's meant to be science? I remember being at school, you know what I mean, and with my science class, me at the back, sort of flicking things at the teacher, but I took some of it in. In science, you get your theory, you do your experiment, you get your result, and then you share it. It's very important to print it and share it, and then your other peers see it. Here, everything's closed, secret.
This is a good point. see how we are living, identify their customers. Have we been able to do that? Is that something you've been able to do?
Our customers are amongst the most wealthiest companies on this planet, but you won't have heard of them. Syngenta, have you ever heard of that? Check them out. Syngenta, one of the biggest companies in the world. They virtually own now the entire chemical industry. They're now Chinese based. So it'll be all these. There's the Pfizer, the Glaxo, Monsanto, DuPont, but these are chemical companies and pharmaceutical companies. GlaxoSmithKline. They're grey people in grey suits. They don't have. It's not about the brand names. All the dogs that go from here for the toxicology test. It's nearly always chemical and pharmaceutical companies. And you think to yourself, how can I avoid chemicals? So a simple consumer boycott isn't going to do it.
What will then?
It's going to be the science, probably the thing that's going to stop this. I've been doing this for 40 years. I can show you pictures like this of the dogs in horrible conditions. They don't even have a water bowl. The fact they've never seen the sky. But I can make you cry. But because of the world we live in, there's immorality. Gandhi called vivisection the blackest of all crimes. And there's a man who chose his words well. Think of all the atrocities he's seen in his life. He chose those words. But what's going to stop it this time round is the science, is the cold facts, not the morality of how cruel it is, because they were always used just to say in the past, it's a dog or your baby. It's an unfortunate thing that we have to torture the dog, but unless we do this, your baby will die. Now we're calling them out on it and we're going after the science and there ain't none. So that's probably the way it's going to be. It doesn't work.
Brilliant stuff. People are saying, how can they find out more about you? I've already put a link, I think, in the description to Camp Beagle, so you can find that in the description below. John, we got you back. Anything else that we can do, you just let us know, right? Anytime that you need a platform, you just have to let me know and you will be given one immediately. We really appreciate you joining us today.
We need, I'm like a sponge these days for support. Normally if you get support, no, please keep the love and support coming in, because here we are in a nice sunny day. Imagine getting through the January, the winter. I'm terrified about going through another winter. But let us know you're out there. Like in the past, protest, we're making history, like the Greenham Common Peace Camp. People were proud of that.
Exactly.
You never had to go, but you were giving it the thumbs up. So, and come and have a cup of tea if you ever get the chance, and then and come and smell this place, see it, and come and cry here.
You're an absolute star, John. We've loved having you with us. Thank you for being with us. Take good care of yourself. Love to everybody there.
All right. Say goodbye to Pepe.
Bye, Pepe. Bye, Pepe, darling. Take good care of yourself. Bye, Pepe. Pepe.
She's been for a swim. She's been for a walk. She's been fed. Just think, these dogs never get to leave the cage. And from here, they get tortured, for God's sake,
Our viewers have absolutely loved you being on. And I say loved, obviously, the way I mean it. Obviously, we'd rather you didn't have to appear at all. And do you know what?
We never, ever, ever get on mainstream media. They won't touch us with a bar show. 3 years, 9 months. Puppies being tortured, multinational corporations, government institutionalized stupidity. It's made for being covered. We don't get touched with a barge pole.
Absolutely outrageous. It's outrageous.
We do it all ourselves. You do it all ourselves. Excuse my French, but I was going to say, but I don't know if you like F them, we've carved this out ourselves. And every time the mainstream media touch them, the first thing they'll ever do is have some paid lobbyist on it going, blah, 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 to add balance to the story. Because anyway, la, 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 la.
We got you, John. We got you. I feel your passion.
Wicked.
We all do. We love what you had to. Well, we don't love what you've had to say. We just love the fact that there's somebody of your caliber there. That's what we love.
Yeah, that's right. Simple thing.
Bye, Pepe. Take care, sweetie. A happy dog. A happy dog. Simple stuff, right? Simple stuff, mate. Take care of yourself, everybody. This is the remarkable John Curtin from Camp Beagle. Take good care, John.
God, thank you.
Lots of love to you all. Take care.
Ciao.
Wonderful to have you with us. Wonderful. One amazing human, everybody. Amazing human. I don't know where all the names have gone, by the way. The names had disappeared. I can't see. Media scumbags. MSM are part of the establishment. They are indeed. Thank you, John from New Zealand, says Kiwi. Mama, indeed. And appear is just missing an S, and you have a spear. What's that? A lot of bet. What's that? Don't know what that means either. John Rocks, Summer Breeze. I just love people like John. This is like, these are our heroes, right? These are our heroes. Like these people literally out there through all weather. And I've been there, as I say. We took them bags of food at one Christmas, but. There you go, Rachel. Thank you for raising up, and that is still ongoing, and that we needed to revisit that. Beagle's lives matter. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that very, very much. Right. On his website now, says Mike. Indeed. Women with balls, men with balls. That's what Wake Up is all about. It is. We've all got lots of balls. Thank you so much. I can unmute now. Was it too painful? It's too painful for some people. I get that. I absolutely get that. Right. Lovely people. Let me see what I wanted to talk about. Just say I loathe, as you know, the ideological attacks on sick and disabled people. I absolutely deplore it. I am very pleased to see that next week, Diane Abbott, obviously Labour politician, she has secured a debate on the government disability social security cuts next Wednesday, the 7th of May. And I'm really glad that I've had many disagreements with Diane historically. But I'm really glad that she's pushing that through, because that needs to take place. And David Nolan of Stop Common Pass gave me a quote, and I'm very grateful to him. He said, "Dear Sonia, outside of my work campaigning, I've spoken to a lot of people claiming support from DWP from all walks of life. There are many, many genuine individuals who need support due to existing mental health and other physical conditions expected to last 12 months or more. Yet, yes, there are chances within the system and those who absolutely should not be receiving state welfare. We must continue to challenge the mainstream and other widespread narrative framing all those who claim support as being idle, lazy, and living a life of luxury. This could not be further from the truth, and it is nothing more than intellectual laziness." And so say all of us. Well said, David. Absolutely spot on. Of course, he's absolutely right. There will always be chances, but the vast majority of people who are claiming these, because they're hard to claim. My brother, God rest his soul, when he was still alive, somebody who worked all his life and then needed help. And the pages are endless. He needed help from my other brother and my sister-in-law to assist him. This oftentimes sick and disabled people can't even fill out these forms. There's too much of it. This whole idea that they can suddenly rock up claiming to have mental health problems and suddenly they're given all manner of benefits is a lie. It's a lie, and I'm not having it. Right. Let's talk about Groomed, a national scandal. I want to review that for you. Anybody seen it? Channel 4 documentary. Let me just bring up an image, as I like to. Powerful, extremely powerful. The story of 5 women who have been groomed in the UK. And it's not oftentimes when media talk about grooming, they use the example of Sammy. But these were women that I'd never heard of before. And I think that's good as well, because otherwise it can start to look like it's only 1 or 2 when it's always the same voices speaking out about it. So I think, not to take anything away from Sammy, who is a very powerful advocate for these things, but it is really good to have other voices as well involved. Let me just bring in this image as I talk about it, if I can. So Channel 4, it was done by Anna, documentary filmmaker, and she has been covering this story for at least 30 years. And it's a story of vulnerable women who have been let down by the state and abused, in her words, by British Pakistani men. And we know that for a fact now. And grooming gang victims, as we heard in the documentary, are almost exclusively neglected children. They've been failed by their own families, very sadly, and many of them end up in foster care. And we heard the story as for one example of Chantel. And Chantel was a survivor. She went into care. She had 40 odd different places where she was fostered. Chantel is the blonde lady in this picture. She was groomed. She was given alcohol. She was given pills in drinks. She was given cannabis. When she was 11, she was with one guy for a week or 2. And the one that she thought was her boyfriend, who was about the age of 20, would bring others for her to pleasure. She was taken to a hotel for 4 days. She was prostituted. She was given cash at the end of it. She was abused by one of her kind of like highest daily totals was 11 men in one day. It's horrible. It's not for the faint-hearted to watch this at all. Not at all. But it is a must. It is a must watch. That is the reality. Anyway, so let me just continue with this. Maggie Oliver became involved following the death of Victoria Agolia. Victoria Agolia was another grooming gang victim. And Maggie Oliver, obviously a former Greater Manchester Police detective. She was involved in Operation Augusta. She said within weeks, Maggie is in this film, she said within weeks, we had dozens of Pakistani men who were sending boys to pick up girls from children's homes. Both Anna, the documentary filmmaker, and Maggie have had similar timeline regarding this. Anna had previously made a film called Edge of the City in Bradford. And around about the same time, Maggie's team for Operation Augusta had identified 97 child rapists, dozens of children. And Chantel was one of the children on Operation Augusta's list. Maggie never met Chantel then. But Chantel is the first child, now obviously an adult, to speak out from the Augusta investigation and be prepared to waive anonymity. Others have spoken out, but Chantel is the first one to waive her anonymity. And it's very hard. But it also was interesting to get an insight into what was going on in the background, because when Anna was talking about her film, Edge of the City in Bradford, this was at kind of like the start of 2000. I think it was around 2004, and there were all the issues, and it was as I say, about the city of Bradford, and there were the Bradford riots, there were the local elections, there were BNP candidates, and Edge of the City was about to air. And what Anna revealed was that the Chief Constable of Yorkshire wrote to Channel 4 claiming it would create community tensions and disorder if they ran that documentary. And so the film was pulled. It was shown months later, transmitted months later, but they pulled it probably at the point when it could have done the most good. Right. And that tells you a little bit something. And that tells you about the complicity of Yorkshire Police as one example. And we've heard that as well. Greater Manchester Police, for example, from Maggie Oliver about their complicity. And we also heard the story of Erin, which is awful. Her story began as early as the 2000s at the age of 12. She didn't fit in with her family. And what happened was that her and her mates, they discovered these young Asian boys in town who were the same age. And these young boys were sent out really like as honey traps to these young girls. And what happened was the young girls were then hanging around these young Asian boys. Happened for a couple of weeks. And then the boys introduced Erin and her mates to their uncles. And Erin said, I let these men do stuff to me because I was scared to say no. She talked about how they would be picked up from school. She said the school teachers knew what was happening. A lot of people, a lot of agencies, a lot of people in authority knew what was happening with these abused girls. Absolutely. Erin's mum even reported stuff to the police, but police said it was Erin's lifestyle choices. She was 14. She wasn't the age of consent. And they found her notes, what Children's Services had written about her. Children's Services wrote that she hung around men and she was promiscuous. I repeat, she was 14. If a 14-year-old is promiscuous, it is surely the job of Children's Services to find out why. 14-year-olds are not naturally promiscuous unless something has happened to them. Erin has been involved with 3 trials. She's seen men convicted. And it's really awful because this whole idea of scapegoating the children and turning them into, in the eyes of the police, as prostitutes, as being promiscuous and all of that stuff is absolutely wrong. They were abused. They couldn't possibly be complicit. They were too young to consent. I will keep repeating this until my dying day. And so, there were a number of women, as I said, there were 5 women that they looked into. Scarlett hid her identity for fear. She talked about how as recent as 2 years ago, she was involved in grooming. So that already showed the absolute lie, this whole idea that this is historic. Scarlett's literally talking about how she was groomed 2 years ago, right? She said that in 3 years ago, 2022, she said she was trafficked to Wolverhampton, to Birmingham, to Dudley. She said a taxi driver would pick her up to go to Rochdale. She met many girls up and down the country. She said she still sees the male abusers walking around. It's still happening. And she said it's still happening because it's organized crime. It's not going to stop. And Marlon, Scarlett's dad, felt forced to put her into care at one stage. 4 men dragged her out and took her to Wales. She was 15. She was seen as a problem child by the authorities. She was an abused child. And absolute failure by the local authorities, Thameside, Greater Manchester Police. On top of that, Scarlett was also then later on involved because she was then pulled back in after she'd escaped, been put into care. She was then pulled back in again. And she was then involved in cutting up and delivering bags of crack cocaine exploited for sex and drug running. It's just a horror story. One horror story after another. I think it's brilliantly made, actually. And it feels authentic when you listen to it. Anna, the documentary filmmaker, the journalist, has made lots of child abuse films. She said that while she wanted to acknowledge that the vast majority of abusers are white, we need to understand the specific nature of cases involving the grooming gangs. And she said, why was it young girls? She was told by Asian guys in Sheffield that young girls were targeted because they were vulnerable to it, of course. Previous films, Anna had talked with actually Asian British mothers who have acknowledged it, says it needs to stop. In 2009, Anna had made Britain's sex gangs. And the reality is, as Anna said, is Asian men are massively overrepresented in gang grooming. And Anna was also following gang grooming in Telford in Shropshire. So I think a couple of really important things to come from the documentary. And one is it's not historic. It's still very much happening. And 2, people are still scared to speak out about it. And Steph was one of the children in the investigation involving Maggie Oliver, Operation Augusta. We saw Steph's face and hands, not face and hands. We saw Steph's voice. We heard Steph's voice. We saw her hands, but it was a face of an actor, which is a familiar story by now. These young women are terrified, obviously, of retribution. And but same familiar story, children's home, introduced to men, kidnapped, kept in a flat for days. Men took turns with her. She told women who worked in children's homes. She reported it. Police came, and then nothing after that. Old familiar tale. Anna also had interviewed mothers who recalled the abuse suffered. It was just awful. The whole thing was awful. And wonderful Jane Sr. was in it. Jane was with us recently. Let me just bring up an image if I can, if it will show me an image of very wonderful Jane Sr. Let me just see if it's in here. I would like to, but Jane was on with us recently, and Jane was one of the earliest whistleblowers in Rotherham. Here it is. Let me just try this. Is that one of Jane that I can use? Ooh. Okay, I'm going to use that one. Sorry, you can see a little bit of an image of a reflection where I've taken the picture, but I hope you'll bear with me for that. So, as I say, Jane Sr. was with us recently, and there she is. And Jane had talked about how not only had they, she'd been threatened, had they lost reports and various other things, but Jane is an absolute brilliant woman, and she's worked with exploited children for a very long time. And when she joined us before, she talked about what she talked about in the documentary, and that is in the 2000s, the Home Office funded research into child exploitation in Rotherham. The report was never published. And what they identified was 331 young women were at risk in 2002 that the authorities did sod all about. And then there were other figures where, and of those figures, by the way, they were primarily white females. There were a couple of black females and 22 British Asian women as well. And we never obviously hear about either black women or British Asian women in this grooming. And that is oftentimes because people have hijacked it for political and racial purposes. And so the narrative is really important that they only portray it as white working class girls, but it was very much others involved as well. Of course, the vast majority were white working class girls, but not exclusively so. And to make it exclusively so is to deny that these other women or these other young girls were abused as well. Anyway, what happened was after Jane had, they'd done their report and everything, and they were highlighting all this, the council then closed down her organisation, Risky Business, that was looking after these vulnerable children. And that was what Jane talked about when she was with us recently, about how she eventually blew the whistle to a journalist, Andrew Norfolk, in the Times, and that exposed what was going on in Rotherham. And they also in it, and Jane was absolutely brilliant, as indeed was Maggie Oliver. These are two brilliant people, and I have a great deal of respect and time for them. They talked about the modus operandi of these men and of these grooming gangs. There's 5 stages, apparently. Stage 1 is where these young girls are courted, that these men are like, I'm your boyfriend now. And I think they essentially kind of love bomb them. If anybody's been involved in love bombing, you know what it's like. You're made to feel like you're the center of the earth, that, you're given lots of gifts and everything. And that's what they do at stage 1. And that's to reel these young girls in. And bear in mind, these young girls are coming from backgrounds where they probably feel deeply unloved. So these monsters, these savages, know that, and they take advantage of that. And then stage 2 is where these savages demand dependency from these young girls and then start to isolate them from their friends and family. Stage 3 is where the guy now has control, and the fear of violence has entered the picture as well, and that is if the girls don't do as they're told, they will be harmed. Stage 4 is where drugs are introduced, so the girls then also become dependent on the drugs as well. And stage 5 is where the girls are essentially put into prostitution, although of course it's not called that. They couldn't call it that because I think the girls would catch on. And what happens is at stage 5, these uncles, these men, then ask these girls to sleep with their mates, that say, you're doing me a favor, please do this, you're my special, you're my sweet, and all that. And this is what's happened. And anybody who's been abused, anybody who's a survivor, will know how it happens. Oftentimes it's because you're vulnerable, and that's how it's achievable. One of the most egregious stories was Jade. Now, Jade was a bad story, and that was in High Wycombe. So again, not up north, right? Not in Telford, but in High Wycombe, right? Which is going more south. And she did identify herself, and she talked about how life was good, but she also talked about how her alcoholic dad used to beat up her mum. At 14, she left home to live with her dad, who was a heroin addict, and his drug dealer friends would get her drunk and make her feel special. See how vulnerable these young people are. Jade was placed into care. She was even in care, she was still being abused by these men. And when the interviewer asked Jade, how many men have you been abused by? Jade said it's in the hundreds, but I try not to go there. I mean, I can't imagine it. Don't want to imagine it. She was even made part of a police protection order at one stage, and it didn't stop it. And what was even worse, absolutely worse, is that she was classified as a nonce herself at the age of 18. Let me explain that to you. One night, when she was supposed to be protected in the children's home, right, in the foster home, she woke up with police officers around her, and she was arrested for inciting sexual activity on a minor. And the charge was that she had taken one of the girls with her from the care home to go and have sex with these men. So literally, she was a victim to criminal, like quick time. And she's on the sex offenders register. So she was an abused young girl who was taking another abused young girl with her, but she was charged because she was older than the young girl. She was charged with being the predator, of being the criminal. And to this day, she's still on the sex offenders register. She was abused. They couldn't even protect her in children's homes. And then the police got a charge against her and a conviction, and she can't even go on school trips with her own kids. The law has been working against these young people, and you have to ask why. Well, I think they kind of discovered why in some of it, and it was apparent, and I think it was from Steph's story, that at least one cop from Greater Manchester Police had been identified as being involved, and that's when Operation Augusta was shut down, and Maggie talks about that returning. And the big problem, of course, is getting these cases to court. Every now and again, we see a splash in the newspapers. It's like grooming gang, but honestly, it's not. We're not even pricking it. We're not even pricking this particular balloon, and it's just actually awful. And obviously, what happened in 2014, which gave us some idea about the scale of the abuse, was the J report in Rotherham, and that was pretty damning. But again, problems with it, not getting out there as far as it needed to. And the other thing that they showed on this documentary was how on TikTok in particular, there are protests by those who believe that their friends and relatives are victims, i.e. they're not involved in grooming gangs. And there's absolute vitriol towards victims. Anna's team had infiltrated a WhatsApp group, and this WhatsApp group was put full of like relatives of people who have been convicted, and the stuff that they were saying about these trafficked women was just absolutely horrendous. But worse than that, Irfan Khan, a convicted one of these people who were convicted for being involved in the grooming gang, was actually joined one TikTok live. He played the victim, and then his sister broke an anonymity order for 3 victims at his trial and named these 3 victims, which is contempt of court. All of this is on the internet. The names of 3 people who are subject to an anonymity order, their identity has been put out there by a relative of a convicted man. It's just really shocking stuff. There was briefly about the involvement of others in this story. The English Defence League as one example. Keir Starmer, Elon Musk accusing Keir Starmer earlier this year, which kind of reignited the whole thing. But Anna is naturally cynical, having seen countless promises and failures. She's not convinced that everything is going to get sorted. She said it's not about race or class. It continues decades on. There are still very few convictions. We have to be able to call out the elephant in the room. And when one of the young women was asked, do you think that the sensitivity around this was cultural sensitivity? She didn't know the answer to that. She didn't know whether it was cultural sensitivity and not wanting to rock the multicultural boat, which is what they said to Jane Sr. and which Jane Sr. repeated here and in the documentary, or as, and I think it was Chantel they were talking to, or she didn't know whether they just didn't care about these girls, like their families didn't care about them, the authorities didn't care about them, which is also possibly true as well. But the reality is it's a very powerful documentary. I absolutely recommend it if you've got the stomach for it. But there are still failures in the system, and the overriding message is, where is the justice for the victims? So that was my take on it. Has anybody else seen it? It was very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Cassandra said it is about race and class. Wake up. And on this occasion, yes, actually it is. It is. Islam isn't really, what's that? I've just put up something that I didn't necessarily mean to because I hadn't even checked it. Right, let me take that back down. Sorry, Ian, I hadn't read it all. Milford said it's all about race. Yes, Raja Mia doing great work on this issue. But when you say that, you're ignoring the fact that I told you that they've also attacked other British Pakistani girls and young black females as well. So it's not all about race. It is not all about race. We have to work with the facts. So clearly it is some about race. And clearly the silencing is some about race and cultural sensitivities. But it is also that they don't care about these females. They don't. And I'm not just talking about the people who groom them. I'm talking about the authorities. But there is also clear interference. There's clear interference. Look, there was at least one cop who was noted being involved. And then the investigation at Greater Manchester Police was closed. So it's all too late. Them all come back and say, yeah, terrible, terrible stuff. And talking about Raja Mia, who's also been on with us, of course, he had tweeted Jess Phillips. She's obviously safeguarding minister for girls. She's refusing to support a national inquiry with statutory powers because the inquiries that we've got that have been launched, like the Rupert Lowe one, it's not going to do what needs to be done. It has no powers. All they can do is say this happened and why. And then Maggie Oliver is looking to her own campaign for prosecutions as well. But yeah, it's horrible. It is horrible. And there'd been some really good people who were prepared to speak out about this early on, and they were shut down and they were silenced. So I think it's all very painful. But to suggest that this is a part of our history is a lie. It is not a part of our history. No way, no how. And unfortunately, I am not going to have time to go through all the various geoengineering stuff that I wanted to today. I'm sorry, peeps. I've been sent so many emails, so many emails. I'm going to have to work out what I'm going to do about that moving forward, because I don't want anybody to feel that they're being ignored. Not at all. Thank you for all your geoengineering images. Thank you to Lisa and Jane and Tommy and Anthony. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. And Claire said, hey, Sonia, been playing catch up on these past couple of weeks. You've had some great guests I wanted to comment on. Lucky for you, I've forgotten who they were. Great, good stuff, Claire. Just wondered, as I heard you say you were talking geo tomorrow, well, I'm briefly talking it, if anyone or anyone else in the UK have observed the same as me in Yorkshire. The chemtrails have still been happening. They expand as normal, but then disappear, and the sky is still clear and blue. It's almost as if they had them spraying something else to mimic, but let them disappear to try and con new people looking at the trails into believing it isn't real yet. Now, I think that's interesting. Has anybody else noticed that? A change in the skies? Anybody else notice that? And that was obviously after their announcement last week that they're going to dim the sun, which we know has been going on forever and a day. And I did briefly refer to what John had said on, I think it was Wednesday's show, where John was talking about this whole idea of sucking carbon out of the sea. Small pilot scheme at the moment known as Secure. It's funded, of course, by the UK government, which means it's funded by you and me. And the idea is it's part of a search for technologies that fight climate change. We're all sick of it, the lies they tell. But now sucking carbon out of the sea is so ridiculous. They're going to look back on us, in 50 to 100 years' time, and they'll say those people were mad. They believed that people could be born in the wrong body. They believed that carbon was the biggest problem. They wanted to dim the sun. They wanted to suck carbon out of the sea. They're going to think we're idiots. They literally are. And I want to read this as well, very, very briefly. And that is viewer Eileen said, "Where have all the animals gone?" And I think this is interesting as well. And again, like with Claire, throwing it out to you to see what your thoughts. Eileen is a regular viewer. She says, "I have strong feelings about what appears to be going on with geoengineering and the audacity of messing around with sun dimming and cloud seeding. I have been sky watching for over a year now. I admit to have felt totally alone with my opinions about the abnormality of the trails in the sky. Not really able to convince my nearest and dearest that I could not accept they were not condensation trails." But what Eileen is actually writing about, I think, is interesting. Listen to this. Now, what I'm writing to you about is possibly an out there, or is possibly as out there as chemtrails. And perhaps I am jumping the gun here, but here in Devon, I live overlooking beautiful scenic farmland and have lived here for just over 20 years. There are always some animals, cows, sheep, and occasionally horses in the fields. They are frequently moved from field to field, but the land has not had a single animal in any of the fields that are visible to me since January of this year. I am aware that farmland lie fallow, sometimes for many years. I should say that this land has only been used for livestock, not food growing. I do wonder if others have seen this in farmlands around Britain. Can you tell me, people? And Eileen went on to say on a lighter note, "If I see loads of solar panels arriving, I will be writing to you again." I hear you, Eileen, I hear you. But people, if you live near farms, can you tell me, has the farm stock changed? Has anything changed about the farmland? Because we know there was an attack, obviously, on the farmland. And also, thank you, Marco. Marco regularly sends me geoengineering pictures. Thank you. I appreciate that as well. Something weird happened. This week, I don't know if you heard me, I made a comment about David Attenborough, right? And I said, when he goes, there'll be a lot said about him. Yesterday in the newspapers, Sir David Attenborough says he is nearing the end of his life in a powerful statement. So watch this space. That's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. How are you? You're not fighting in the comments, are you? You're all right. Cows out to grass this week. What's going on? Yes, very little cattle in the fields here too. There's enough wildlife in London and Birmingham, says Martin. I get you, Martin. I get you loud and clear. Right. Geriatric, what were you talking about when you said, "So love your shows, but wish you would include the people you're interviewing, as I haven't a clue and have limited time"? Wish I would include the people what? You do know in the description down below, it's like I created like a newspaper. So there's like headlines with all the people involved, all the topics and the times of each subject that I cover. So thank you as ever to our donators. You are absolute stars. Thank you, Paula W, to Neve, to Jill, to JF, to Jan B. These are my recent Patreons. Thank you so much. Behind the scenes video, where I live and what it's all about, will be available next week, and it'll be available to everybody who donates to Wake Up. And I want to end the show on the let them philosophy. Have we heard about that? People have criticized it a lot. I think Mel Robbins is one of the people who talks about it. And the idea is let people say whatever they want. Just let them get on with it. If people don't want to involve you, let them. I think it's this whole idea. And then there's a backlash against it, saying that that's really kind of cowardice. You need to challenge it and don't just let people and everything. But I have to say, I largely understand and agree with the principles of it, and none more so than when it comes to my work. I'm not just a host of this fabulous show, right? But I am also an investigative journalist. I have written and broadcast about rotten people and rotten events for a very long time. And it would be remiss in my role to ignore them, right? To just say, let them. That's not what my role is about, right? Because I'm not a prostitute and I'm not a journalist, okay? But I take each story as it comes, and I am interested in the truth. I'm not interested in agendas. And I appreciate that some people who get involved in causes do so for reasons other than the cause itself. So, for example, many religious people who oppose gender ideology do so for different reasons, frequently homophobic. Than I do. I oppose gender ideology because it is child abuse that seeks to erase women, men, and children and same-sex relationships. So that's why I oppose it, not for religious or bigotry reasons. Some people who oppose grooming gangs do so because they hate Muslims and they hate Pakistanis. And I don't. I oppose grooming gangs because they are abusing children. And the fact that they are Asian and Pakistanis, I will absolutely highlight, because we need to be able to call out elephants in rooms. And if there is a demographic, we need to be able to say it as well. So I think you take my point. So sooner or later, if you stand up to be counted, you will be called some ism, some ist, or some obic, right? That's a reality. Okay. When I acknowledge the problems of uncontrolled immigration, I'm called a racist. When I point out the problems of transing children, I was accused of being a transphobic. When I pointed out the problems of poisoning our skies, I was called a conspiracy theorist. And recently, because I have seen the problems emanating from Israel, I have been called anti-Semitic. I refute each and every tag, each and every one. I have opposed bigotry and stereotyping all my life and will continue to do so. But as I said at the start of the show, it would be so wrong of me to ignore any injustice that I find, which brings me to Israel. And as I said before, I was late to the table on the power of Israel. I would say that it only started to dawn on me in the last 5 years, and certainly after October the 7th, that knowledge absolutely sped up. Some people, as I said before, wish I wouldn't talk about Israel. They leave comments saying it's the one thing they can't support me on. Fine. I don't ask for anybody to support me on anything I say. You are absolutely free and of your own mind and own understanding to be able to disagree with me. But don't expect me to change my position either, unless there would be a very good reason for it. It's important to understand this is not my first rodeo. I'm not a kid. I'm 60 years old. I've been doing journalism for decades. I see through propaganda with a sharpness that I have not been blessed with before. I really believe I've come into my own over this last year, and not least because I'm doing Wake Up. And that's what experience does for you. I know that when people accuse me of being an obic or an ist or an itic, they do so in either supreme ignorance of who I am or what I do, or they do it in bad faith and seek only to demonize me because what I am saying opposes what they are doing. And it's important to know I will not stop. I absolutely will not stop. As the saying goes, use the bricks they throw at you to build your house. And that is what I have done. My critics, those who seek to smear me for calling out injustices, be that against sick and disabled people, children, or people in Gaza, have not been able to stop me. And they know, despite everything they have tried, and a lot has been done to me, to get me to stop, including offering me large sums of money. Not one bit of it has worked. I won't until I am no longer physically able to speak up and be heard. I believe it is absolutely important in my job as an investigative journalist to fight against injustice. And if it comes across my path, to ignore it makes me complicit, and I won't be that. And so going back to the beginning of this point, I agree with the idea of let them to a certain degree, because let them call me names. Let them smear me. Let them attempt to cancel me. They call you names to silence you. That's the only reason they do it, right? Not because they have some legitimate reason behind it. I will take criticism. I make mistakes. I do all manner of errors. I like to be corrected. I like to make sure that we've got everything as accurate as humanly possible. But when some of these people, they're bad faith actors and they question you to make you doubt yourself, don't do it. Let them disagree. Let them smear and demonize you. The only time I plan to stop is when I decide to, until and unless a higher power decides otherwise. So yes, let them. Absolutely let them. And I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. And thank you, of course, to our wonderful, glorious mods. Thank you to the live chatters, wherever you're receiving us, whether you're on X, on Rumble, on YouTube or Spotify. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm going to end with a quote because that's what we do around here, right? You're wonderful people. You're all wonderful people. And well, I've got two quotes. The first one I want to say is a very famous one, which was credited to Aristotle, but who can ever tell? Right? Who can ever tell? And Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And I think that when you're able to say, let them, it's because you know yourself. You know what matters. But the one that I want to finish on is when you know yourself, you are empowered. When you accept yourself, you are invincible. Don't forget it, people. You are bloody invincible. Go to it, Tigers. And I will see you Monday. Have a fantastic weekend. Love you lots. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for all your support. I truly, genuinely appreciate it. See you Monday. Take good care. Enjoy. Oh, and obviously bank holiday Monday, but we're still here. So if you're on holiday, come join us. Come join us. See you Monday, everybody. Take good care of yourself. Lots of love to you.